Good morning, people, and welcome back to day 2 of Wildscreen Festival. I'm your host, Lizzie Daly, broadcasting to you live from the centre of Bristol. The sun is shining. We are back for another jam-packed episode. Now, yesterday I did a massive call out to all of you to get in touch, get your questions in, get your comments in, and I was rather hoping we were going to get one of you on live, and we have done just that. So I'm actually joined now by Jack Bojan from Hong Kong. Hello Jack, can you hear me?
Hi Lizzie, yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. It's so good to see you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
No problem, I'm happy to be here. I was very excited to see that email.
Yeah, I mean, it's brilliant to have such a global community of Wildscreen delegates. Tell me where you're from at the moment. Well, where are you? And tell me a little bit more about your background.
So I was born and grew up in Hong Kong, which is where I currently am right now, but I'm British originally. So born and grew up in Hong Kong, and a few years ago went back to the UK to start studying at the University of Leeds. I'm studying zoology. And recently I've been back in Hong Kong over this last year, working as a research assistant at the University of Hong Kong's Conservation Forensics Lab.
Absolutely brilliant. So your background is as a scientist primarily, but I want to go on to that shortly. Have you caught up on any of the festivals so far? If so, what have you seen and what are you looking forward to most?
Yeah, it was an amazing moment when it got underway yesterday. Of course, watched your brilliant introduction yesterday, and then I stayed on to watch the next session about how the industry is booming, which was really interesting, and to see those amazing clips they showed as well of some up and coming documentaries in the pipeline. Unfortunately, after that, I actually had to go to work and then to bed. There's quite a severe time difference here, and I've also been working all day today, so I've not yet had the chance to catch up. But I've got a night of no sleep plans ahead, probably for the rest of the week. I'll be living on about 2 hours, but I'm excited to go. That's what I signed up for.
That's it, just kind of managing diaries and time differences and all of that. But it's brilliant that you're a part of the festival, from the other side of the world. So tell us, coming up in the schedule, is there anything for you that's set out, something you're really looking forward to watching?
Well, as someone who wants to start entering the industry, I'm really looking forward to the masterclasses, especially, for example, the one later on photography. I'm quite a keen photographer, but never had any sort of courses or training. So it's going to be really interesting to see that. Also, my passion has always been in presenting. As a little kid, I used to get my friend to hold a little fake camera and video me as I talked about a plastic snake I found in my garden. So the presenting masterclass as well, with Dan O'Neill, who I've actually heard a talk from before. I'm really, really looking forward to. I mean, that's before even going on to listening and hearing from some of my childhood idols, such as Steve Backshall, obviously Sir David Attenborough, Dr. Jane Goodall. It's all exciting.
Yeah, there's a pretty impressive lineup, absolutely. Yeah. But I have to ask, because obviously this year's very different. Going virtual means that we have this ability, right, to connect with people like yourself from all over the world. But how have you found it over this lockdown period? I guess things are a little bit different over in Hong Kong. How have you found it, and how are you finding this experience going ahead with it virtually?
Yeah, I mean, Hong Kong have generally handled the situation quite well. So while I've been here, there's actually not been any sort of severe lockdown in place. But obviously one way it's impacted me is I should be back at university in Leeds now. And originally I was planning, to go back to university and then travel down to Bristol to attend this festival in the flesh. However, I think you and the whole team and everyone involved has done such an amazing job bringing it online. Everything, as I suppose you should expect from people working in the media industry, everything runs so smoothly, so well. The platform is really amazing. And I think it's so nice that, you're beginning to see people from all over the globe tuning in and at all different times as well, such as myself.
Yeah, well, it's great to always hear that feedback, but actually to hear from you guys, this is what it's all about, really, essentially, isn't it? Now, we spoke a little bit briefly before we went on live. Tell me about your research. Absolutely fascinating. I'm sure a lot of people watching will relate to, I guess, the current situation and some of the research that you're looking into.
Yes, I suppose my research is quite topical at the moment. Starting while I was working at the University of Hong Kong, I started doing a project looking at seas pangolins. I'm sure most people know what pangolins are. They're an incredibly rare, incredibly enigmatic species, and they're actually the most trafficked mammal globally in the world. I think National Geographic actually did an article maybe a year ago. I think it was the most trafficked mammal no one's ever heard of, or something like that. So I've begun working, and this has gone into the work I'm doing for my dissertation, using stable isotope analysis, which is a technique where you can use it on sort of hard materials such as pangolin scales, or it's also been done before with elephant ivory. They've actually built a database using elephant ivory samples called Ivory ID, where if you have a sample of ivory, you can run it for stable isotope analysis, and you can input the data onto this website, and it can not only age the ivory, which is really important regarding the legality of ivory in some places, such as Hong Kong. You can also locate roughly where the ivory has come from. And of course, then that could be used to help local enforcement efforts wherever it came from. And so we're hoping, I'm just a small part of a much bigger picture, hoping to do a similar thing with pangolins.
Yeah.
My specific work is looking at if you can just differentiate species simply using their stable isotopes, because stable isotopes sort of give you an idea of different diets, and pangolin being very specialist feeders.
Yep.
If they're feeding on different species of ants and termites, this could really show up in their isotope analysis. So I'm hoping to be able to, in the future, have a seas pangolin scale and be able to tell where it's come from, what it's been eating, if it's an African or Asian species, and hopefully exactly where it's come from, so we can help the global enforcement effort.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the wildlife trade being such a big issue and a tricky one to tackle. You mentioned a few things that you're interested in coming up: photography, potentially presenting as well. So earlier I spoke about uncelebrated habitats or species. You know, what would be the stories that you want to tell, or how would you tell those stories moving forward? And I'm guessing this week will actually help you shape that, right? You know, having access to some incredible speakers and commissioners this week will hopefully inspire you to make them in a certain way.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think I've always gone, at the moment at least, through quite an academic route. So I'm just excited for this festival to really fully expose me to the industry. And of course, I'm going to learn so much. There's actually a project I'm working on at the moment. If you want to talk about sort of unexplored regions, there's a invasive species in Hong Kong of yellow-crested cockatoos. So these cockatoos are indigenous to Indonesia, where they're critically endangered. However, in roughly the 60s, through the bird trades, these species was introduced to Hong Kong, and they're now semi-thriving in the urban environment. So obviously there's the big issue behind invasive species. They don't belong here. They don't belong in this ecosystem. However, they are critically endangered. This population could be a crucial source. So I've been working with a National Geographic explorer, Astrid Anderson, who's doing work regarding this species. And it's those sort of more undocumented tales I would love to tell, and have always fascinated me. The weird creatures, or the interesting species that don't always get the limelight.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I think you should go ahead and become that person who tells that story. I'm still working on getting somebody to commission something on peat bogs. Still working on that, so I'll get back to you on that one. Jack, so good to chat to you. Hopefully we'll catch up with you later today and throughout the week, and enjoy the Wildscreen Festival. And thanks for coming in live from Hong Kong. See you later.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, Jack.
See you later.